It was a bright and sunny Saturday morning in a little place called Maple Grove. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and the air smelled like fresh grass. I'm Jake, just a regular guy who moved into a new house about a week ago. I was super excited to make this place my own. I had big plans like painting the walls, planting some flowers, and fixing up little things here and there. Today I was outside with my toolbox, working on something simple, the base of my mailbox. It's that little stand that holds the mailbox up by the road. Mine was wobbly and old, so I grabbed a hammer, some nails, and a few pieces of wood to make it strong again. Maple Grove seemed like a nice, quiet neighborhood when I first drove in. Kids rode their bikes down the street and people waved hello from their porches. But after just a few days, I started noticing something. The neighbors here were, well, let's call them curious. They liked to peek out their windows or stop by to ask questions. "Where'd you move from, Jake?" they'd say, or "What's that you're building there?" I didn't mind too much. I'd just smile and say, "Oh, just fixing stuff up." Most of them were friendly enough, but there was one person who stood out. Her name was Karen, and she wasn't like the others. Karen was the queen of the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. That's a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood, like how tall your grass can grow or what color your house can be. Karen took her job very seriously. She didn't just walk around, she strutted. You know, that kind of walk where someone sticks their chest out and swings their arms like they're the boss of everything. That was Karen. She always carried a clipboard tucked under her arm, and a pen was stuck behind her ear. She'd scribble stuff down all the time, like she was keeping a list of every little thing she didn't like. If a kid left a toy in the yard, Karen wrote it down. If someone's dog barked too loud, Karen wrote it down. She acted like she owned the whole street, not just her own house. Me, I was the opposite. I'm a quiet guy. I like to keep to myself, do my work, and not make a fuss. That Saturday, I was out by the road, hammering nails into my mailbox base. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed a little, but it wasn't loud enough to bother anyone, or so I thought. I had my toolbox open on the grass, a pile of wood next to me, and a can of soda sitting nearby. It was a simple job. The old mailbox base was falling apart, and I wanted it to look nice. I figured no one would care about a guy fixing something so small, but I was wrong. Karen cared. Oh, she cared a lot. I'd only been in Maple Grove for a week, but I'd already heard whispers about Karen from the other neighbors. "Watch out for her," one guy said while watering his flowers. "She's got eyes everywhere," a lady told me as she walked her dog. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, how much trouble could one person cause? I was just a new guy trying to settle in. I wasn't looking to start any fights or break any rules. All I wanted was to fix my mailbox and enjoy my new home. But Karen, no, she had other plans. She didn't see me as just Jake, the new neighbor. She saw me as someone to watch, someone to boss around. And that sunny Saturday was the day she decided to come after me. Hear how it started. I was kneeling by the mailbox, tapping a nail into the wood when I heard footsteps. Flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. They were coming fast, like someone was on a mission. I looked up, and there she was, Karen. She stood over me with her hands on her hips, her clipboard clutched tight. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had this look on her face like she'd just caught me stealing cookies from a jar. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp and loud. I wiped some sweat off my forehead and smiled. Just fixing my mailbox base, I said, nice and polite. I held up the hammer to show her. It was wobbly, so I'm making it sturdy. Karen didn't smile back. She squinted at the mailbox, then at me like she was trying to figure out if I was lying. That's too tall, she said, pointing at the wood. It's against the rules. I blinked. Rules? What rules? I'd never even heard of rules about a mailbox base. I don't think so, I said, still trying to be friendly. It's just a little stand. But Karen shook her head hard, like I'd said something crazy. No, 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 she snapped. The HOA has rules about height. It can't be more than 12 inches tall. Yours looks like 14. She whipped out a little ruler from her pocket and bent down to measure it, muttering to herself. I watched her, kind of confused but mostly amused. 14 inches, 12 inches, who cared about 2 inches? It was a mailbox, not a skyscraper. But Karen acted like it was the biggest deal in the world. She stood up, scribbled something on her clipboard, and glared at me. This isn't okay, she said. I'm going to report you. Then she turned around and marched off, her flip-flops slapping the ground even louder than before. I just sat there, hammer in my hand, wondering what had just happened. Report me? To who? For what? A mailbox. It was so silly I almost laughed out loud. But here's the thing Karen didn't know. I wasn't just some regular guy with a toolbox. Sure, I looked like one. I had messy hair, old jeans, and a plain t-shirt. I acted like one, too quiet, friendly, minding my own business. But I had a secret, a big one, something I wasn't telling anyone in Maple Grove, especially not Karen. While she was busy measuring my mailbox and writing notes, she had no idea who she was really dealing with. She thought I was just a new neighbor she could boss around. She thought she was in charge. Oh, how wrong she was. That little mailbox base, it wasn't just a piece of wood and nails. It was part of something way bigger, something that would turn her whole world upside down. See, I wasn't scared of Karen or her clipboard or her silly rules. I'd faced bigger problems than a nosy neighbor with a ruler. I'd been in situations she couldn't even imagine. And while she strutted around like the queen of Maple Grove, I was keeping my secret close, waiting for the right moment. That Saturday, as the sun shone down and the birds kept singing, Karen thought she'd won. She thought she'd caught me breaking her precious rules. But the truth, she'd just stepped into a game she didn't even know she was playing, and I was ready to play it better than she ever could. So here's a fun question for you. What's the wildest thing a neighbor's ever complained about where you live? Maybe it was your dog, your bike, or even your mailbox. Drop your answer below. I'd love to hear your stories. For me, this was just the beginning. Karen had no clue what was coming, and I wasn't about to tell her. Not yet. The sun was still high, my toolbox was still open, and I had work to do. Little did she know, every bang of my hammer was bringing her closer to a surprise she'd never forget. It was still that same sunny Saturday in Maple Grove, and the day was going just fine until Karen showed up again. She didn't waste a single minute. That afternoon, after I'd been hammering away at my mailbox base for a while, I heard those flip-flops coming. Flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. The sound was fast and loud, like she was on a big mission. I looked up from my work, and there she was, stomping across the street straight toward me. Her face was all scrunched up like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. She stopped right in front of my mailbox, planted her feet on the pavement, and pointed at it with one finger like it was some kind of crime scene. "That base is 2 inches too tall," she barked. Her voice was so loud it made the birds in the trees fly away in a hurry. "It's against HOA rules and I'm reporting you." She stood there, hands on her hips, staring at me like I'd done something awful. I was kneeling on the grass, holding my hammer with a pile of nails next to me. I didn't say much at first. I just looked up at her, gave a little smile, and said, "Okay, Karen." My voice was nice and calm, like I didn't have a worry in the world. I even kept hammering, bang, 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 while she yelled. But inside, oh, I was laughing so hard I could barely keep it in. 2 inches, really? She was mad about 2 tiny inches on a mailbox base. It was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. Karen didn't like my smile, not one bit. She puffed out her chest, clutched her clipboard tighter, and kept going. "You think this is funny," she snapped. "The HOA has rules for a reason. Mailboxes can't be taller than 12 inches. Yours is 14. I measured it." She waved her little ruler in the air like it was proof I was some kind of bad guy. I glanced at the mailbox base. It was just a simple wooden stand I'd built to hold the mailbox steady. It didn't look fancy or dangerous or anything. To me, it was perfect. But to Karen, it was like I'd broken every rule in her big HOA book. I shrugged and kept working. "It's just a mailbox, Karen," I said, still calm as could be. "No one's gonna care." But that only made her madder. Her face turned red and she shook her head so fast her messy bun wobbled. "Oh, someone's gonna care," she said. "I'm in charge of this neighborhood and I say it's wrong. You're new here, Jake, so maybe you don't know how things work, but you'll learn. I'm reporting you to the HOA right now." Then she spun around, her flip-flops slapping the pavement even louder, and marched off. I saw her pull her phone out of her pocket as she went, her fingers already tapping away. She was probably calling the HOA hotline, or maybe someone even bigger, to tattle on me. I watched her go, still smiling to myself. She thought she had me all figured out. She thought I was just some random guy who moved in, someone she could boss around with her clipboard and her rules. But here's the thing, I wasn't scared of her, not even a little. Her little threats, they didn't bother me at all. I kept hammering bang, 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 because I knew something she didn't. See, I wasn't just a guy fixing a mailbox. I dealt with way bigger problems than Karen and her silly HOA rules. Our problems she couldn't even dream of. And that mailbox base she was so mad about, it wasn't just a pile of wood and nails. It was part of something special, something secret. Karen had no idea who she was messing with, and I wasn't about to tell her. As she disappeared around the corner, I leaned back on the grass and took a sip of my soda. The sun was still shining, the air was still warm, and I was still calm. Inside, though, I was laughing again. Karen thought she was so smart, strutting around like the queen of Maple Grove. She thought she could scare me with her loud voice and her phone call. But trouble was closer than she thought, and not the kind of trouble she was expecting. She was walking right into something big, and she didn't even know it yet. The truth is, I'd seen people like Karen before. People who think they're in charge, who like to yell and point fingers. Back where I used to live, I had a neighbor kind of like her. His name was Mr. Tom, and he'd get mad if my basketball rolled into his yard. He'd shake his fist and shout, "Keep that ball over there." I'd just nod and say, "Yes, sir," because I didn't want a fight. But Karen was different. She didn't just yell, she made rules and wrote stuff down and acted like she could punish you. That clipboard of hers, it was like her superpower. She'd scribble notes and wave it around, thinking it gave her all the power in the world. But me, I didn't care about her clipboard or her rules. I had my own plans, and they were way bigger than anything she could scribble down. While Karen was off making her phone call, I kept working on the mailbox. I hammered in another nail and checked the wood to make sure it was straight. It looked good to me, strong and steady, just how I wanted it. But I knew Karen wouldn't stop. She'd be back, probably with more rules or more threats. And that was fine. Let her come back. Let her yell some more. I wasn't worried, because I had a secret up my sleeve. A secret that would make her flip out if she ever found out. Every time I banged that hammer, I was getting closer to something she'd never expect. And every time she got mad, she was digging herself into a bigger mess. I could picture her now, standing in her house, talking fast into her phone. "There's a new guy, Jake," she'd say. "He's breaking the rules. His mailbox base is too tall. We need to do something." She'd sound so serious, like it was the most important thing ever. Maybe the HOA people would listen. Maybe they'd send me a letter or tell me to fix it. But I wasn't scared of letters or phone calls or even Karen herself. I'd faced tougher stuff than that, way tougher. Like the time I had to help a friend out of a big jam, or the day I had to stand up to someone way meaner than Karen. Compared to that, her little tantrum was nothing. She thought she was the boss, but she didn't know the first thing about me. The funny part, she didn't even ask me why I was building the mailbox base. She didn't care. All she saw was something she didn't like, and she ran with it. If she'd stopped for a second and said, "Hey Jake, what's this for?" maybe things would have gone different. But nope, Karen wasn't the asking type. She was the yelling type, the pointing type, the "I'm reporting you" type. And that was her mistake, because while she was busy getting mad, I was busy with something else. Something she'd never guess in a million years. That mailbox wasn't just a mailbox. It was a piece of a puzzle she was about to trip over. As the afternoon went on, the sun started dipping a little lower in the sky. The shadows got longer and the air cooled off just a bit. I finished hammering the last nail and stood up to stretch. My mailbox base looked solid now, nice and firm in the ground. I wiped my hands on my jeans and grabbed my soda can. Karen was gone for now, but I knew she'd be back. She wasn't the type to let things go. She'd probably call the HOA, maybe even the police, all over 2 inches of wood. And that was fine with me. Let her call whoever she wanted. Let her think she was winning. Because the truth was, she wasn't winning anything. Trouble was coming her way, and it was closer than she thought, way closer. So there I was, standing by my mailbox, looking out at the quiet street. The kids were still riding their bikes, the birds were back in the trees, and everything seemed peaceful. But inside, I knew things were about to get wild. Karen had started something she couldn't finish. She thought she was picking a fight with just some new guy named Jake, but I wasn't just Jake. I was Jake with a secret, and that secret, it was going to change everything. She had no idea who she was messing with, and I wasn't about to tell her. Not yet, the game was just beginning and I was ready to play. The next day was Sunday and the sun was still shining bright over Maple Grove. I woke up early, grabbed my toolbox, and headed outside to keep working on my mailbox base. I wasn't in a hurry or anything, just taking my time, enjoying the fresh air. That's when I noticed something. Across the street, behind a fluttery white curtain, I saw Karen. She was peeking out her window, watching me like a hawk watches a little mouse. Her eyes were sharp and her head tilted just a bit, like she was trying to figure out what I was up to. I grinned to myself and gave her a big friendly wave just to mess with her a little. You know, the kind of wave where you wiggle your fingers and smile real wide. I thought maybe she'd wave back or at least nod. But nope, Karen didn't wave, she didn't smile. Instead, she yanked her clipboard off a table, grabbed her pen, and started scribbling something down real fast. Then the curtain snapped shut and she was gone. I laughed under my breath and went back to my work. Bang, 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 my hammer hit the nails and the mailbox base got stronger with every swing. Karen could watch me all she wanted, I didn't care. She thought she was so sneaky, spying on me like that, writing her little notes. But I wasn't worried, not one bit. She could scribble whatever she wanted on that clipboard of hers. It didn't change a thing. See, I had a plan, a big one. And every time I saw her peeking or heard her flip-flops coming, it just made me smile more. She had no idea what was really going on. Then came Monday. I'd been outside working again, adding a few more pieces of wood to the mailbox base when I decided to check my mail. I flipped open the little metal door and there it was, a white envelope with big, bold letters on it, Maple Grove HOA. I pulled it out, ripped it open, and read the note inside. It said, "Dear Mr. Jake, your mailbox base is against HOA rules. It is too tall. Fix it by Friday or you will face fines." The word fines was underlined 3 times, like someone really wanted me to notice it. I could almost hear Karen's voice in my head barking about her rules again. I bet she wrote this herself or at least told someone to send it. She probably thought it would scare me, make me run outside and tear the whole thing down. But you know what I did? I crumpled the letter into a little ball and tossed it right into the trash can by my garage. Plop. Then I grabbed my hammer and kept going. Bang, bang, bang. See, I wasn't just building a mailbox base. Oh no, it wasn't just some boring pile of wood and nails to hold up a mailbox. I was setting up something special, something Karen would flip out over if she ever found out. Every nail I hammered in, every piece of wood I measured, it was all part of a bigger secret. A secret I wasn't telling anyone, especially not her. She thought she was so smart, sending me that letter, peeking out her window, writing her notes. She thought she had the upper hand, like she was winning some big game. But oh, how wrong she was. Karen was walking right into something she didn't even see coming, and I was the one holding all the cards. The rest of Monday went by quiet. I worked outside for a while, then went in to eat a sandwich and watch some TV. But Tuesday morning, that's when things got fun again. I was back at the mailbox, tightening some screws, when I heard that sound, flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. Karen was coming. I didn't even look up at first. I just kept working, pretending I didn't hear her. She stopped a few feet away and I could feel her staring at me. "Did you get the letter?" She asked, her voice all sharp and bossy. I glanced up, gave her a little nod, and said, "Yep." She crossed her arms and tapped her foot. "Well, are you gonna fix it?" she demanded. I smiled again, just a tiny one, and said, I'm working on it, Karen. Then I went right back to my screws. She didn't like that answer, not at all. Working on it, she snapped. You better fix it right or the fines are coming. I'm watching you, Jake. Then she turned and stomped off, her flip-flops louder than ever. I watched her go, still smiling. She thought she'd scared me with her letter and her big talk. She thought I'd give up and do whatever she said, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't giving up. Every turn of my screwdriver, every bang of my hammer, it was all leading to something big. And Karen. She was just making it more fun for me. By Wednesday, she was back at her window. I saw the curtain move, and there she was again, peeking out. This time she had binoculars, those little glasses you use to see far away. Binoculars for a mailbox across the street. I almost dropped my hammer laughing. I waved again, bigger this time, and she ducked away fast, like she didn't want me to see her. But I saw her. I saw her scribbling more notes, probably writing. Jake waved at me, very suspicious, or something silly like that. She was so busy watching me, she didn't even think about what I might be up to, and that was perfect. The more she watched, the closer she got to my secret without even knowing it. Thursday came and another letter showed up. This one was even bossier. Second warning, it said, fix the mailbox base now or fines start Saturday. I tossed that one in the trash too. Karen was trying so hard to make me stop. She kept peeking, kept writing, kept sending letters, but I didn't stop. I kept hammering, kept measuring, kept building. Because here's the thing, that mailbox base wasn't just for mail. It was special. It had a purpose, a big one. As every little piece I added, every nail I put in, it was getting me closer to something huge. Something that would make Karen's jaw drop when she finally figured it out. And she would figure it out soon. Real soon. I started thinking about Karen while I worked. She was so sure of herself, strutting around with that clipboard, yelling about rules. She thought she knew everything about Maple Grove. She thought she could control everyone, especially me, the new guy. But she didn't know me at all. She didn't know where I'd been or what I'd done before I moved here. I'd handled bigger stuff than her, way bigger. Like the time I had to fix a problem so tricky it took me weeks, or the day I stood up to someone way scarier than Karen. Compared to that, her little letters and her loud voice were nothing. She thought she had the upper hand, but she didn't. I did. By Friday, the mailbox base was looking good. Really good. I'd added some extra wood, painted it a nice brown color, and made sure it was super sturdy. But it wasn't done yet, not completely. There was still one more piece to my plan, one more thing to add. Karen kept watching, kept waiting for me to give up. She'd walk by sometimes, slow and sneaky, glancing at me out of the corner of her eye. I'd wave every time just to see her huff and speed up. She was so mad, so sure I was breaking her rules. And maybe I was a little, but that didn't matter. What mattered was my secret. Every bang of my hammer, every turn of my screwdriver, it was all building up to something she'd never expect. Karen thought she was winning. She thought her letters and her spying were going to stop me, but she was wrong, so wrong. She was walking right into my trap, step by step, flip-flop by flip-flop. She didn't know it yet, but trouble was coming her way, big trouble, and I was the one making it happen. The sun was setting on Friday night, and I stood by my mailbox looking at my work. It was almost ready, almost time. Karen had no idea what was coming, and I couldn't wait to see her face when she found out. It was Tuesday morning in Maple Grove, and the sun was just peeking over the trees. I was outside, feeling pretty good about my mailbox base. I'd been working on it all week, hammering nails, painting it brown, and making it super strong. Now I was putting on the finishing touches, just a few last screws to make it perfect. My toolbox was open on the grass, and I had a big smile on my face. Everything was going just how I wanted. But then, out of nowhere, I heard something loud. Sirens, yep, real sirens, like the kind you hear when an ambulance or a police car is coming. They were getting closer and closer, and I stopped what I was doing to look around. That's when I saw it, a police car rolling down the street, its red and blue lights flashing bright. My heart started beating a little faster, but I wasn't scared. Not yet. I just stood there by my mailbox, screwdriver in my hand, watching as the car slowed down and stopped right in front of my house. The sirens turned off, but the lights kept spinning, making little flashes on the pavement. Then I heard flip-flops, flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. Karen came running out of her house across the street, waving her arms like a wild bird. Her hair was a mess and her face was redder than ever. "Arrest him!" she shouted, pointing at me. "He's breaking the rules. Arrest him right now." I looked at her, then at the cop car, and I couldn't help it. I grinned. Karen had gone full crazy. She'd called 911 over my mailbox. My mailbox, I mean, it was just a little wooden stand with a metal box on top. Who calls the police over something like that? But there she was, yelling and waving, telling the cop to put me in handcuffs. The car door opened and an officer stepped out. He was tall, with a blue uniform and a shiny badge on his chest. He looked at my mailbox first, tilting his head like he was trying to figure out what was so bad about it. Then he looked at me, standing there with my screwdriver and my big grin. "Morning, Officer Daniels," I said, nice and calm. I gave him a little wave, like we were old friends. Karen's mouth fell open so wide I thought her jaw might hit the ground. "Wait, you know him," she sputtered, her voice all shaky. She looked at me, then at the officer, then back at me, like her brain couldn't keep up. Officer Daniels nodded at me and said, "Morning, Jake." Karen's eyes got huge, and she took a step back, clutching her clipboard like it was a shield. That's when I reached into my pocket nice and slow and pulled out something shiny. My badge. I held it up so the sun glinted off it and Karen could see it clear as day. See, I wasn't just Jake, the new guy in Maple Grove. I wasn't just some random dude with a toolbox who moved in a week ago. I was Jake, the undercover cop. Yep, a real police officer working in secret. And that mailbox base Karen hated so much, it wasn't just wood and nails like she thought. It was a hidden camera setup, a tiny little machine tucked inside, recording everything that happened on this street. I'd been running a sting operation right under her nose, and she didn't have a clue. For days, she'd been yelling about rules and writing notes, thinking she was so smart. But the whole time, I was the one watching her. "Karen," I said, still grinning, "you just called the cops on the cops." Her face went from red to white in about 2 seconds. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out, just a little squeak. Officer Daniels chuckled, a low laugh that made his shoulders shake. He looked at Karen and said, "Ma'am, what's the problem here?" Karen blinked fast, like she was waking up from a bad dream. The mailbox, she stammered. It's too tall. It's against HOA rules. I told him to fix it, but he wouldn't listen. She pointed at the mailbox again, her hand shaking a little. I put my badge back in my pocket and crossed my arms. Karen, I said, this mailbox isn't breaking any rules, it's part of my job. She stared at me, her eyes all wide and confused. Your job? She asked, her voice tiny now. Yep, I said, I'm not just fixing up a house, I'm here to keep an eye on things. That camera in the mailbox base, it's been recording for days, and guess what? It's caught some pretty interesting stuff. I didn't tell her everything, not yet, but I let that sink in. Her clipboard slipped a little in her hands and she looked like she might drop it. Officer Daniels stepped closer to her, his face serious now. Ma'am, calling 911 over a mailbox isn't a good idea, he said. That's for emergencies, real ones. Karen swallowed hard and nodded, but she didn't say anything. She just kept staring at me, then at the mailbox, then back at me. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out how she'd missed this. All week, she'd been watching me, sending letters, yelling about rules. She thought she was in charge, the queen of Maple Grove. But the whole time, I was the one with the real power, and now she knew. I leaned against the mailbox and looked at her. Karen, I said, you've been pretty busy, huh? Peeking out your window, writing notes, calling the cops, but you didn't know who you were messing with. She shook her head, still too shocked to talk. Officer Daniels tipped his hat to me and said, I'll let you handle this, Jake. Call me if you need anything. Then he got back in his car, turned off the flashing lights, and drove away. The street went quiet again, except for the sound of Karen's flip-flops as she shuffled her feet. I didn't yell at her or get mad. I didn't need to. The look on her face said it all. She was stunned. For days, she'd been strutting around, thinking she could boss me around. She called me a rule breaker, sent me warnings, even called 911. But now she knew the truth. I wasn't just some new guy she could scare with her clipboard. I was an undercover cop, and that mailbox base was my secret weapon. It had a tiny camera inside, hidden so well no one would ever guess. I'd been watching the neighborhood, looking for trouble, and Karen had just walked right into my plan. She finally found her voice and whispered, "A camera?" I nodded. "Yep, been there all week, recording everything." Her eyes darted to the mailbox like she thought it might start talking or something. "But why?" she asked. I shrugged and said, "That's my job, Karen. I'm here to keep things safe, and you just made it a little more exciting." I gave her a wink and she turned even paler. She didn't know what to say, so she just stood there, holding her clipboard like it was the only thing keeping her steady. The big reveal was out now. Karen had called the cops, thinking she'd get me in trouble, but instead she'd found out I was the cops, and that mailbox base she hated. It was more than just a rule breaker. It was part of a sting operation, a secret mission to catch bad stuff happening in Maple Grove. All her yelling, all her letters, all her spying, it didn't stop me. It just made my job more fun. I looked at her one last time and said, "Maybe next time, ask before you call 911. Then I picked up my screwdriver and went back to work, leaving her standing there, totally speechless. The sun was climbing higher now and the birds were singing again. Maple Grove looked peaceful, like nothing big had just happened, but it had. Karen's whole world had flipped upside down in about 5 minutes. She thought she was the boss, but I was the one with the badge. And that mailbox, it wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It was proof that I was more than she ever guessed. She'd never see me the same way again, and that was just how I liked it. After I showed Karen my badge and told her about the hidden camera in my mailbox, she just stood there, frozen. The look on her face was something I'll never forget, pure shock, like she'd seen a ghost, mixed with a tiny bit of fear. Her eyes were wide, her mouth hung open, and her clipboard dangled in her hands like she didn't know what to do with it anymore. She didn't yell or point or stomp off like usual. She was too stunned to move. Officer Daniels, the cop who'd pulled up in the flashing car, looked at her and chuckled. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and funny, "maybe stick to measuring your own yard next time." Then he gave me a nod, got back in his police car, and drove off, leaving the street quiet again. Karen didn't say a word. She just stared at me for a few more seconds, then turned and slinked back to her house across the street. Her flip-flops didn't slap the pavement loud like before, they dragged a little, like she was too tired to lift her feet. Her clipboard hung by her side and her shoulders slumped down. She looked smaller now, not like the big, bossy queen of Maple Grove she'd been all week. I watched her go, then picked up my screwdriver and finished my work on the mailbox base. The camera inside was still humming along, doing its job, and I made sure everything was tight and perfect. I wasn't mad at Karen, not really. I was just glad she finally knew the truth. Here's the cool part. That little camera in my mailbox wasn't just for show. It had already caught some shady stuff going down in the neighborhood, stuff Karen's precious HOA wouldn't like one bit. See, I'd been watching the street for days as part of my undercover cop job. The camera recorded everything, every car that drove by, every person who walked past. And it turns out Maple Grove wasn't as perfect as Karen thought. There were some sneaky things happening, like people sneaking around at night or dropping off weird packages. My camera caught it all, and I'd already sent the videos to the police station. Karen had no idea, but her perfect little neighborhood had some secrets of its own. Later that week, something big happened. On Thursday afternoon, I was inside eating a snack when I saw two police cars pull up, not to my house but to the HOA office down the street. The HOA had a little building where Karen and her friends met to make their rules and send out letters. I stepped outside to watch. Two officers got out and walked inside, their faces serious. I couldn't hear what they said, but I knew why they were there. They were asking about some unreported incidents, stuff the camera had caught that the HOA didn't tell anyone about. Maybe someone was breaking real laws, not just Karen's silly mailbox rules. The police stayed for a while, and when they left, they carried a box of papers with them. Word spread fast in Maple Grove. By Friday, all the neighbors were whispering about it. The police came to the HOA, one lady said while walking her dog. "They're in trouble," a kid shouted as he rode his bike past my house. I didn't say anything, I just smiled and waved. But inside, I knew what was up. Karen's reign as neighborhood boss was over. She'd spent years strutting around, telling everyone what to do, writing notes on her clipboard, and acting like she owned the place. But now everyone knew she wasn't as powerful as she thought. The police visit shook things up, and people started talking about how maybe the HOA wasn't so great after all. Karen didn't come outside much after that. I saw her peek out her window once or twice, but she didn't wave or yell or anything. Her clipboard stayed inside and her flip-flops stayed quiet. I think she was embarrassed, maybe even a little scared. She'd called 911 on me, thinking she'd get me in trouble, but instead she'd made herself look silly. And worse, the police found out about stuff she didn't want them to know. Her big plan to boss me around had backfired big time. She wasn't the queen anymore, she was just Karen, the lady who got it all wrong. As for me, I got a few high fives from the other neighbors. Turns out, lots of people in Maple Grove were fed up with Karen and her rules. On Friday night, a guy named Tom from down the street walked over while I was watering my grass. "Hey Jake," he said, grinning. "Heard you put Karen in her place. Nice job." He slapped my hand in a big high five. Then a lady named Mrs. Lee, who lived next door, came by with her little dog. "She's been bossing us around for years," she said. "Thanks for standing up to her." She gave me a high five too, and her dog barked like he was cheering. Even some kids riding bikes slowed down and yelled, "You're cool, Jake," before speeding off. It felt good, real good. By the end of the week, my mailbox base stood tall and proud. Well, not too tall, just right. The camera inside kept doing its job, and I kept being Jake, the undercover cop. Karen stayed quiet, the HOA got a shake-up, and Maple Grove felt like a better place. Justice was served not with yelling or fighting, but with a little secret and a lot of truth. And that was enough for me. So that's the story: a nosy Karen, a mailbox with a secret camera, and a big twist she never guessed. It's funny how things turned out, right? Karen thought she was the boss, strutting around with her clipboard telling everyone what to do. But she was the last one to figure out what was really happening. Sometimes, the people who act all high and mighty don't know as much as they think, and the quiet ones like me, Jake, might have the biggest surprises hiding up their sleeves. Next time you see someone acting like they're in charge, just watch out. They might not see the whole picture. The ones who stay calm and quiet could be the ones with the real power. What do you think? Should Karen have minded her own business instead of bothering me? Drop your ideas in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you say. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll catch you in the next one.